That leads me to what I believe happened last week. And I was told an altercation came up between Hendon Hooker and Jeremy Banks. I was not told if that was as physical as some people have uh, led you to believe. And maybe it was. And that Joe Milton had a step in the middle of it. That may be true. I cannot tell you that I was able to confirm that. But what I know is there was an altercation, and it was at least somewhat over an NIL money. Now, at some point, you if you're a grown up, Amanda, you have to look at the situation and say that Jeremy Banks has been arrested before and threatened the police, and it's video recorded. You can go back and look it up. And on the other side, you have Hendon Hooker, that the first time he gets in trouble at Tennessee, the next time he gets in trouble at Tennessee will be his first. Okay, so if you're basing where you're spending your corporate dollars on those two guys, it's pretty obvious where you're going to end up if you do a little bit of research. Maybe you talk to both. Maybe in the initial stages, you've forgotten about that arrest that was in 2019. That's quite possible. But anybody that's going to spend more than, a couple $100, I vetted guys. I did research for Jacob Warren and Cooper Meigs, and obviously that's worked out fantastic. But if you are going to invest 6 digits or 7 digits, you're certainly going to do. You probably have your own department that does this type of research. You've worked in private investigating before. You know that stuff's all findable. It doesn't disappear off the web.
No, it's easily findable too.
Yeah. I don't know half the tricks and it took me 30 seconds because I had forgotten, quite frankly, the Jeremy Banks thing was that ugly. So, as adults, you being 24, me being 48, as adults, we know that that's a pretty darn easy decision, right? That you're going to go with the guy. I don't care if he's maybe overexposed or not. And you could argue that Hendon Hooker was getting to the point where he was overexposed. I'm not going to go the Jeremy Banks route. And it's asking a lot for a 21 or 22-year-old person to get that. Some would get it, some won't. I don't think Jeremy Banks got it. And I don't think he realized that, yes, those things still matter. They still affect your reputation years later. And Amanda, I believe that a couple of things happened. There was a team chemistry issue. I'm sure some people would side with Jeremy Banks, kind of like a quarterback debate on a team. Nothing rips a team apart faster than a quarterback debate. It's the worst. I think there was some of that going on. I think there was also not a quarterback debate, but just a debate between two players. And I think that Tim Banks suddenly at the end of the week was like, I've dialed up my usual offense. Let's get rolling. Let's do this. And they weren't comfortable doing that stuff because one of their key players was gone and didn't even make the trip. So, Amanda, I think both schematically, team chemistry wise, both of those, that Tennessee was hamstrung before the coin was even flipped on Saturday afternoon. Because that was not just a regular loss where a couple of breaks went South Carolina's way. That was not a regular loss. That was not coming out flat. They had too much to play for. Your thoughts on those two things and how that NIL altercation might have affected things?
I think we all, well, I don't know if we all knew, but going into the season, you knew the NIL was going to affect things. Like I knew it would affect things because, again, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. I know Hendon's 24, but Jealousy, they're kids. Anytime a kid gets a new toy and another kid doesn't, there's jealousy involved. And I don't care how, mature this team is. I don't care, how well coached and yada yada. There's NIL issues everywhere. Look at Texas A&M. We're seeing that. Number one recruiting class 3 and 6 season, or now 3 and 4 and 7. I can't remember what it is. Anyway, just very underachieved. Will not make it to a bowl game. Alabama, I can tell you there are NIL issues everywhere, and there are. And we knew this was going to be a problem because there's no rhyme or reason to NIL. People get to pick who they want to represent them, and that's it as far as businesses go. Doesn't have to be fair. There are no rules. There are no regulations. It's just we have this group, and they're going to give these people money, and depending on who likes who, that's who's getting the money. Now, with Jeremy Banks being, how can you not understand that your past is out there? How can you not understand that the words that you said you are video recorded on saying that you want to kill all policemen or whatever? How can you not understand that the internet is forever? That stuff doesn't go away. That's my thing is the feeling like you're owed something. You're not. You're not owed anything. The NIL is not to pay every player. It's, which I, again, disagreed with. I think that players should get paid the same amount if they're playing. That's just my opinion. But I think to make it fair and to go across the board, you pay them just like you pay anybody that works for the university. That means not a bunch of money, not name, image, likeness. But if you're Jeremy Banks, how do you not see this coming? Unless you are just completely deluded.
Well, young and ignorant. And ignorant, for the record, does not mean a person's stupid. It means they're uninformed. No. Okay, so right. I'm not calling anybody stupid. Sometimes I use that word and people get a little sideways on it. Ignorant means he's uninformed, and that people are going to factor that in and do background research. And he probably hoped it just faded into the distance, but it didn't. Lyman said, was there anything to the rumor about Banks stepping on the tee and refusing push-ups? I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to go back to a comment that Nug said. Nug said, I'd rather not speculate. I would like to know the truth. I'm telling you is what I know. I'm not speculating. I know that there was an altercation. So I believe firmly that it was sparked by NIL money. Now, so I'm not speculating. It would be speculating. I've heard the T talk and the push-ups and all that stuff. That to me would be speculating. That sounds to me like the rumors run wild, in my opinion. If you say do some push-ups and you can go to South Carolina and you don't do push-ups and you're just, something's really wrong with you. So yeah. I'm not going down that path, just to tell you that I'm not speculating. Now, big picture here is the issue lies with how Tennessee is handling NIL. And everybody wants to point to it and say it's the model for it. Now, I said this, Amanda, you probably don't even remember. It's been 3 months ago. I said that I thought there was concern about how the NIL issue was being handled at Tennessee. I can tell you for a fact that a lot of people, and I've known this for months, a lot of athletes are frustrated because they don't get any sort of assistance whatsoever. So remember, everyone, that the administration, UT, is not allowed to help. That technically is still a violation. Now, does Josh Heupel pick up the phone and the Spire Group answer immediately? Yes. Okay. That happens. But there are a lot of Lady Vols for instance, that are very frustrated by the lack of NIL money. Now, you can say that's the way the market bears. They're not worth as much as football players, and you're probably right. But there's some baseball players. I know of one that contacted the Spire Group, never got a call back. So it is. I just want to be real clear. This is now officially, if you didn't think so before, big business. What is the goal of the Spire Group? Is the Spire Group to grow up an incredible football program and rival some of the greatest ever? No, not at all. The goal of the Spire Group, and I'm not knocking them, this is business. They are in this to make money. And don't tell me for a second they're not thinking in the back of their heads that we can be their agents when they go to the NFL. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a bit. So, do they want to be associated with a middle of the pack baseball player who could use a little bit of cash? Do they want to be associated with the Lady Vols who they're probably not going to make? I mean, what do they make in the WNBA? A decent player makes like $60,000, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes, you want to take 10% of that? That's $6,000. That's not worth your time.
No, it's funny to me that everyone, oh, the NIL, we should pay the players. We should pay the players. Well, yeah, that's great to get on board with that, paying the players. But what you don't understand is the NIL is not set up for the players to make money. It's set up for big business to make money. That's what it's set up for. It is set up for people like Spire to make money off of the players.
Now, I'll be the first to tell you when I have answers and the first to tell you that sometimes I just don't. Okay, Amanda, I philosophically, I agree with what Nick Saban has said all along, that it should be spread among the players evenly. I get that. I get that. But business-wise, our country, I don't think it fits in line with businesses. I think that Bryce Young is worth more than their backup left guard, if you want to use Alabama as an example. So I'll be the first to tell you, I don't have the answer. I do not have the answer. I can tell you that if each one of those players isn't getting a check from Dick's Sporting Goods, then something's wrong, because they wore the orange helmets. That is in tandem with the university. They are released at the same time. They have the Dick's logo on it. They have all kinds of feel-good events with players that show up that I'm sure are paid somewhat. But if they're not getting a monthly check that says Dick's Sporting Goods on it, then there's a problem. And I mean every player. I don't mean Hendon Hooker, Jeremy Banks, or even guys we know like Latrell Bumpus. I mean the backup left guard. Until you start doing that and you have some sort of baseline, there is going to be a resentment. So somewhere in between Nick Saban saying all money should be shared equally, which is not the American way, and then a guy getting $8 million for promising he'll come to UT, somewhere in the middle is the correct answer. And somebody that goes to business school needs to figure that out, because I think I think it undermined a lot of kids' dreams on Saturday, and that's not what it was supposed to be.
No, and to Nick Saban's point, I think his philosophy is you start everybody out on an equal playing field. You start everybody out during the season. You come in clean slate. Everybody's the same. So everybody has the right to go for the starting job. No matter if Bryce Young's there, if somebody outperforms Bryce Young, then they get the starting job. With the NIL, you automatically tier these kids down to levels. These are your top players. These are your top performers. This is, these are the it people. If you're under that tier, you're less than they are. So with that being said, if you're automatically tiering these guys off, then you're automatically giving them, a reason to dislike the people ahead of them, especially when it comes to money. Everybody knows that money is really, like, mixing it with athletes, as we've seen, has not worked out well for a lot of people. So doing it when they're 18 to 22 years old and not even, like, making it even across the board, that's going to cause you problems. I mean, the NCAA was against people having an advantage for so long. For so long, they were against schools having an advantage over other schools because they wanted it to be fair. Boosters couldn't pay players. Schools couldn't pay players. They wanted it to be even across the board so nobody had an unfair advantage. Then they turned around, went complete 180, and was like, here, unfair advantage for these big schools that are on TV. Y'all can get whoever you want to as long as people pay for them. Like, it makes no sense. Again, the NCAA blows my mind.
I don't care who comes up with it. I don't care if Nick Saban, Elon Musk, Buzz Aldrin comes up with it. I don't care. I mean, just somebody has to come up with a better system. And I can tell you right now that Tennessee's system is get superstars. And that's what Tennessee's system is. And I believe that there needs to be the next step for the NCAA. And don't take 10 years to do this like you did with NIL, like you did with the transfer portal, like you did with, or 50 years, like you did with all these other things. Don't take a lot of time to do this. You are the boss. Why can you not, and there's more money laying around than you can count. Why can you not hire somebody to be the intermediary? I mean, Josh Heupel should never have to pick up a phone and say this guy needs to be taken care of. He's got other things to do. I mean, why in the world would you not have an intermediary? I guess that in their eyes breaks some laws of amateurism, which we're way beyond, but have an intermediary who can say, this guy needs money. This guy needs money. This guy's coming. Now, it's a thankless job because everybody's going to come to you saying they want money, but then you are able to go to these individual institutions. I can guarantee you. Look at Jacob Warren. He has representation. He's gone out there and hustled. It's just a coincidence that he and I work together, but he's gone out there and hustled, and good for him. I mean, he has absolutely. I was in, when I'm in Knoxville, it's hard not to hear his commercials on talk radio. So good for him. He's hustled it. He has a good, clean image. He hasn't gotten in trouble with the police, but there are a lot of other people that fall somewhere in between that that the NCAA just continually frustrates me on one rule after another. So we've gone from not that long ago, Amanda, that if you transferred, and I think you and I've discussed transfer. I'm fine with if you have to sit out a year. But the fact that they used to make kids pay for their own way when they transferred, that's a financial penalty on an amateur athlete. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, so we've gone from that in 6-7 years to now make as much as you want, and there's absolutely no skeleton of rules to follow.
Yeah, you can't introduce stuff like this. The NIL shouldn't have been introduced until they figured out every little issue that might come up. Until they had a complete rules, regulations in place that says, okay, this is how it should be, this is how it can be, this is a violation, and we'll hold you to that. That should have been what happened before they introduced the NIL. But it was like one day they were just like, you know what? I think players should get played. Here you go.
Well, now that
players should get paid.
Essentially because they lost in court, and this has been going on for 20 years. Because you know where this originally started? I play video games, so you might not
No,
know.
I don't.
Ed O'Bannon, who was a big man who played for UCLA.
Oh, yeah, I remember
He
that.
was the first to lead a lawsuit against video games that used their likenesses. And they did deserve. By the way, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate that. Helps us get the word out. Subscribe and share, but click on that like button if you're with us now. We greatly appreciate it. But Amanda, he is the one. That was 25 years ago that they had no retort to say, "Oh, you do deserve a little bit of money." It's
Yeah.
zero retort. And
They should have been prepared for this because this is clearly where it was going. And they had no way. There's no preparation. There's no rules. I mean, what were these people doing? I'm curious. What were they doing when all of this stuff was happening?
well, and the saddest thing about this is that we haven't even mentioned Hendon Hooker, which we're going to do. Just heartbreaking, suffering the ACL injury, adding injury to insult.